Hey Meadow, good to see you. How are you? All right. Here is our question at the start this morning, okay? Which is welcome, mystery stranger who I can't see because I'm showing my.
Naima.
Oh, hey Naima, welcome back. All right. I said welcome back because I had Naima in first period. All right. So here's our do now for today. What is an anecdote? All right. If you heard this word before, you know what it is, you know what it means. Please respond in the chat. If you're not sure, then give your best guess. But I want you to tell me if you can what an anecdote is. So take a minute or two here and see if you can come up with something. I'd like to see at least two responses, maybe more, in the chat here for this. So take a minute and throw them up in there. So what do we think here? Any responses coming in the chat for this? Looks like we got one so far. Naeem said an amusing story that is realistic. All right. Any other thoughts? Do we agree with Naima? Do we have a different definition? Let's see if we can get one more in there. Yeah, I'm looking for an anecdote. What do we think? Anything else coming in the chat? I'll give everybody maybe another 30 seconds to a minute here. What do we think? Any other last minute responses? No? Well, Naima, you pretty much nailed it. That is a great definition. So, an anecdote is kind of a short, little, amusing story that can be realistic. It can be realistic, meaning like um, realistic fiction, or it can be something that actually happened. All right. And the other part about an anecdote, all right, short story about someone. Yeah, thank you, Denise. Yeah. So we know it's a story. We know what they're they're usually short stories. Um, we know usually they are about stuff that actually happened because remember our whole project here is about creative nonfiction. But there's also another important piece to an anecdote, and see if you can pick up on what that other piece is from this video right here.
After being cut from his high school basketball team, he went home, locked himself in his room, and cried. He wasn't able to speak until he was almost 4 years old, and his teachers said he would never amount to much. was demoted from her job as a news anchor because she wasn't fit for television. Fired from a newspaper for lacking imagination and having no original ideas. At age 11, he was cut from his team after being diagnosed with a growth hormone deficiency, which made him smaller in stature than most kids his age. At 30 years old, he was left devastated and depressed after being unceremoniously removed from the company he started. A high school dropout whose personal struggles with drugs and poverty culminated in an unsuccessful suicide attempt. A teacher told him he was too stupid to learn anything, and that he should go into a field where he might succeed by virtue of his pleasant personality. Rejected by Decca Recording Studios, who said, "We don't like their sound. They have no future in show business." His first book was rejected by 27 publishers. His fiancée died, failed in business, had a nervous breakdown, and was defeated in 8 elections. If you've never failed, you've never tried anything new.
All right, so those are all example. Obviously, these are very, very short ones, but those are all examples of anecdotes, right? So, what is the final piece of an anecdote? What was the kind of point behind all those examples in that video? What were they meant to do? Why put all those different examples together? What is that video meant to do? Right, the info about their lives before they were famous, and what do you think that info is meant to do to people who would see, like if you would just see the initial description and then you realize, oh, that's about Michael Jordan or that's about Albert Einstein, showing their struggles exactly, and then eventually showing how successful they are. So if you're a regular person reading that, is it meant to motivate you or meant to not motivate you, do you think?
Motivate you.
Yeah, definitely. So there's a theme there with all those anecdotes, is that, we tell this short little story about Michael Jordan being cut from his basketball team and then he becomes Michael Jordan. And the meaning behind it is like, you know, uh you can fail or be cut from your team or whatever, but then eventually you could go on to become Michael Jordan, right? So that's the other piece about an anecdote, is that there's always if I can remember how to spell, which I can't. Anecdotes always connect back to a theme. Okay, so we're using, the vehicle of these short little stories, these anecdotes. Hey, Denim, these short little stories and anecdotes to kind of portray a bigger picture, a bigger theme. Right. So the theme in that video, we could say, was probably, like Denise said, motivation, or like, like they said at the end, if you don't be discouraged if you fail on your first attempt at something because you may become greatly successful, right? And then we illustrate that theme by telling all of those short little anecdotes, like the one about Michael Jordan and Albert Einstein and Steve Jobs, all right? So that's a lot of times the purpose of an anecdote is to portray that theme by telling a short story, and often a true short story that kind of illustrates that theme. Because again, this whole project is about creative nonfiction. So how do we take nonfiction? How do we take stuff that's real, but present it in a more kind of engaging way? All right. Everybody with me so far? I just want to take a quick second and make sure my attendance is up to date here for today. So, can any of you guys think of another famous anecdote that you have seen or heard of, right? That kind of connected back to a major theme or helped illustrate a bigger meaning or a bigger theme. Maybe you saw it in a movie or you read it in a story or something like that. Can anybody think of any more famous anecdotes like that? All right, I think we got everybody now. A lot of times when I think of anecdotes, I think of TED Talks, right? If you've ever watched a TED Talks, most of the speakers who give TED Talks will use, and Miss Kelsey knows this term too, will use anecdotes to kind of prove their point. Like they'll start with a story about their life or somebody they know, and then they'll kind of connect that to the bigger point of um, their TED Talk. Um, the one that comes to mind right away is a TED Talk called "Leading with Lollipops." It's a kind of a silly title, but it's a really great speech, and it's all about leadership and how you can lead a team through enthusiasm and stuff like that. And the speaker starts it by telling an anecdote about when he was in college working for the new student orientation program, and there were two strangers in line and he was giving out lollipops, and he gave one to a man and he said, hey, give it to this nice girl who's standing next to you. And then he made a joke about taking candy from strangers, blah blah blah. And then those two people who were strangers in line ended up actually getting married. And so it was the whole kind of deal. And then he, like I said, connected it to his bigger point. But you can see that's a way to use an anecdote to kind of get to that bigger theme. That's just one that comes to mind. Miss Kelsey, are there any that come to mind for you right away? It doesn't have to be a TED Talk either, just in general.
I mean, I always like the anecdote of Michael Jordan getting cut from his high school basketball team.
Yes.
Like that's stuck in my mind from that video, but I think that's a great one because we consider him like, close to, if not the best of all time. And yeah, he just like had challenges and he could have given up. And the whole point of that anecdote is to like have a growth mindset where you think, okay, how can I improve, instead of, oh, I'm not good at this. So I think that's a very inspiring one for me, because even someone who is the best in the world or the best of all time, the GOAT, can, not make the team in the thing that he was the best in. It's not like he was like, oh, maybe baseball is not for me, I'll try basketball. It's like, this was in basketball, when a lot of people are getting recruited, by college teams. Like Kobe Bryant was already like looked at when he was in high school, but Michael Jordan was a late bloomer.
Yeah, definitely. That's a big one too. I also think the one about the Beatles in there too. It's pretty insane. Like from Decca Records, and they were saying like, we don't like their sound. Guitar sound is on the way out. They're not fit for show business. And then they became the biggest band literally of all time.
Yeah. Like,
So
all right.
yeah, crazy ones. So any other ones anybody can think of off the top of their head? I'm not, that's okay. I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot here, but just kind of show you guys what we're talking about. So that's what we're going to kind of be looking at in, ooh, hang on.
Denise, did I say Michael Jackson or Michael Jordan? Is that what you're asking in the chat?
No, I'm asking like, would he be one, right?
Oh, an anecdote. I mean, there probably are anecdotes about him. I'm not sure if I know them.
I know he was abused, right, from his dad.
Yeah, you're right. I did hear that.
I'm sorry, Denise. My Wi-Fi was acting up. Who were you talking about?
Michael Jackson.
Oh yeah, that's a really good one. And yeah, he was abused by his dad. Matter of fact, all like him and all his brothers, the Jackson Five.
Are we talking about like sexual abuse or physical abuse?
I know for sure physical. I don't know about sexual, but
I didn't know.
I think so. Yeah, that's why a lot of reporters and stuff who've kind of covered him and studied him have came to the conclusion like why he had like Never Never Land and the pet monkey and was always with sometimes precariously children is because he kind of probably still felt like a child in this man's body because he didn't really have a childhood because when the Jackson 5 became famous he was I think 10.
Yeah, he was super young.
So and it was also in different time and they would all stay in the same hotel room and his brothers would have his older brothers would kind of have women going in and out and he would just be there watching and stuff like that. So definitely not any way for a child to grow up, and certainly not an excuse or me condoning him doing some of the things he allegedly did, but when you kind of think about the whole picture it gives you a better idea into how how damaged a person like that can really be. That's really good. That's a good example of an anecdote.
And the other one you made me think of, Denise, was Whitney Houston, because she experienced a lot of trauma and abuse when she was growing up, and it came out. I mean, those things can come out later as like substance use disorder. So she had really been through a lot and didn't know how to maybe deal with it, and probably wasn't supported the way she needed to be. And then obviously had a tragic, end.
Yeah. And again, that's the kind of thing with anecdotes, right? Is they're all leading to paint that bigger picture, right? So, like I said, that's what
And then her daughter too, because the same thing happened with her daughter,
Whitney Houston.
Bobby Christina.
Oh yeah.
Did not know that. Man.
So on Summit, under checkpoint 2, which you should all have assigned to you, which says practice analysis of structure and development, right? If you look at the checkpoint, which you can see if you click right here, right? We have these kind of 3 boxes to fill in, so kind of like a 3-step checkpoint right here. Now we're obviously not going to get this whole thing done today. And I would have liked to have this on the progress report, but because we didn't have class last Friday and we're not going to have class again this Friday, it looks like it's not going to be until progress report 3. But basically what we're going to do with this checkpoint is we're going to read a story, which I will put a link to in the chat, and I'll also add it on Summit. All right. It's called, like you can see here on my screen, The Myth of the Latin Woman. Right. I Just Met a Girl Named Maria by Judith Ortiz Cofer. And this is a story that's kind of told through anecdotal evidence, meaning, she tells the story by telling shorter little stories, inside it, little anecdotes, and then reflecting on them. And they all kind of connect to a bigger theme. All right. So it's a little bit, like you can see, it's a little bit long. We're going to try to start it today and then try to get it finished when we come back next Tuesday. And then what we'll do is, as we're reading it, we'll kind of try and annotate it and work through the checkpoints, thinking about these, specific questions here. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is, first of all, make sure that everyone is registered in Summit, and I will put the link to the story in the chat. So I'm just going to double check right here. All right. I think the only one that we have in here today that I don't have on Summit might be you, Denise. So you might need to and Naima, I don't think oh no, I got you in here. Meadow, you're good. Fabian, you're good. Yeah. So Denise, you might need to email Miss Christina. Denim, I don't have you either. So I think both of you might need to email Miss Christina and tell her you need a code for English 4, because the ones I have are expired now, because it's a little bit later in the term.
That's good to know, actually.
So I'll put a reminder in the chat to each of you right now, so that you don't forget. Okay.
Mr. Ty, you just say you don't got me?
I said I don't have you, not for this class. I don't have you signed up in Summit yet for this class.
Oh, yeah.
So that's why I just chatted you and Denise privately to remind you, you'll have to email Miss Christina and ask her for a code for this class, English 4, because the ones I have are expired now. They won't work when you try to register, because we're later in the term than when they work in the beginning. So
Okay.
just a little quick housekeeping. But the rest of us, I am also going to put now a link to the short story in the chat. So if you can click this link, access the story, and you can follow along.
I was able to get on there too
Say it again, Denise.
with the enrollment.
Say that one.
Sorry. On Summit.
Mhm.
What about it?
I'm on your class now with the enrollment code that Miss Kelsey sent me.
Oh,
I was
it
just
did work.
wondering if I sent the wrong ones because I didn't know if they changed or not. Well,
It
you
did
know
work for you. Let me see. Maybe it did, because
It did work, but it's not showing me none of the checkpoints though.
Okay, yeah, because I have to assign you, so I'll do that right now. Well, that's good. That means it wasn't expired. So then, Denim, that same code might work for you then too. If Miss Kelsey, you can send that out. That's good.
Wait, do you want me to send something out? Sorry.
If you can just send that same code to Denim.
Miss Kelsey, can you text it to me?
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for doing that. That's good, because I had somebody who tried to register for my creative writing class yesterday. And they said the code didn't work. So that's why I figured it might have expired.
What class is this called?
English 4.
Okay.
Yeah. But Denise, I have you assigned to everything now. So if you refresh your page, you should be good. Right.
All right, Denim, I just texted it to you. Okay. Let me know if it works.
So Denim, if you get registered, I'll assign you when we're done here too, and then you'll see everything come up. So the rest of us, I'm going to share my screen right here. And like I said, you can also access this story at the link I just put in the chat. All right. So we're going to try and start reading through some of this. We may get it finished. We may not. And then when we come back again on Tuesday, since again, no class Friday, we'll start working through the checkpoint and kind of analyzing this, how is it structured? How do all the anecdotes kind of tie back to the theme? What is the theme, right? So I'll give everybody another 30 seconds or a minute to kind of pull the story up either at the link or, make sure you're following along with my screen. Right. So here we go. Just to give you a little bit of background, Judith Ortiz Colfer, the author, she's obviously a Latin American woman. She was born in Puerto Rico, right? And so this short story kind of helps to encapsulate her experience as a Puerto Rican woman kind of trying to achieve, success as a writer in America. Right? On a bus trip to London from Oxford University, where I was earning some graduate credits one summer, a young woman, obviously fresh from a pub, spotted me and, as if struck by inspiration, went down on his knees. Oh, a young man, excuse me. A young man, obviously fresh from a pub, spotted me and, as if struck by inspiration, went down on his knees in the aisle. With both hands over his heart, he broke into an Irish tenor's rendition of Maria from West Side Story. My politely amused fellow passengers gave his lovely voice the round of gentle applause it deserved. Though I was not quite as amused, I managed my version of an English smile. No show of teeth, no extreme contortions of the facial muscles. I was at this time of my life practicing reserve and cool. Oh, that British control, how I coveted it. But Maria had followed me to London, reminding me of a prime fact of my life. You can leave the island, master the English language, and travel as far as you can. But if you are a Latina, especially one like me, who so obviously belongs to Rita Moreno's gene pool, the islands travel with you. Okay? So a lot to unpack just in that first paragraph there, but by unpacking it, it'll give us kind of an idea of how the rest of the story is going to play out. So the references she's making there to Maria and West Side Story, all right? We kind of have to know what those are to kind of get, everything she's trying to point out here. So has anybody seen West Side Story before? Do we know what she's talking about here?
No.
Miss Kelsey, have you ever seen West Side Story?
I have, but it was a long time ago.
Okay. So if you haven't, let's see if I can pull up a picture here. All right. So West Side Story, very, very famous musical, right? I'm trying to find a good picture. All right, that won't work. So West Side Story, very famous musical. Basically, it's the tale of Romeo and Juliet, except it's set in kind of the 1950s in New York, and it's like, two street gangs. It's actually being remade right now by Steven Spielberg, so it'll actually be out later this year. But one gang is the Jets, who are predominantly white, and the other gang is the Sharks, who are predominantly kind of Puerto Rican. And a guy from the Jets gang falls in love with a girl from who's her brother is the head of the Sharks gang. So just like Romeo and Juliet, it's kind of this like forbidden love story, right? So Maria is the girl character who the guy falls in love with, and her cousin or her sister is named Anita, and that Anita character is played by a very famous actress named Rita Moreno. This is what she looks like right here. So this is her, in the original production, kind of on this side, and like this is her now. Here's a couple other photos, right, of the movie. This is her right here. So we can see she's clearly Latina, has very distinct Latina features, right? And so that's what she says. When I come from Rita Moreno's gene pool, right? And we know Maria is also a Puerto Rican character in the musical. So that's kind of a little bit of the background there. So knowing that, what do we think? That little anecdote with the guy who's maybe a little bit drunk, he comes on the bus and he sees the author Judith Ortiz Colfer, and he starts singing Maria from West Side Story. Why do you think he's doing that? What's the kind of picture she's trying to paint here? Because if we remember from what we read, she says, I'm not super amused. So she's kind of like giving one of these smiles, like, hey, I'm going to smile to make it seem like I'm okay, but really I'm getting angry about this. Knowing that background about West Side Story and that character now, why do we think that is? What do we think is kind of going on there in that anecdote?
He trying to impress her.
Say it again, Denise.
Wait, can you say that again?
So knowing what we know now about West Side Story and the way the actress who played that character and how she looks, and knowing that the author is also Puerto Rican, what do we think is going on here in that anecdote she's sharing? Why do we think that guy sees her and then starts singing a song from West Side Story?
Because he like her, right?
It could be because he likes her, but
Wait, what happened in West Side Story? Because I really didn't hear that part.
So basically, I was just kind of giving a little bit of background of like, how it's a very famous musical, right? And that, one of the, two, like, there's kind of like this rivalry between two gangs, and one of the gangs is Puerto Rican. And our author of this short story we're reading is also Puerto Rican, right? And she says, I come from Rita Moreno's gene pool, and that's, Rita Moreno is the actress who plays one of the characters in West Side Story. This is a picture of her that I'm sharing on my screen right here. This is her in the purple dress, right? And she says, this guy sees me on the bus and he starts singing Maria, which is a song from West Side Story, and Maria is another kind of Puerto Rican character. So knowing all of that,
Oh, he's trying to compare the two.
He's trying to compare the two, right? Because why does he make that comparison right away? Does he do it because he
Puerto Rican?
Exactly. So he's not doing it because he knows her. He's doing it based on how she looks, right? Exactly. So is that a super cool thing to do, or something that's like not that nice to do, do you think?
It's really not that nice, no.
Yeah, I agree. Because it would be the same, essentially it's the same thing of like, if you look like, if you look anything like, a famous Black celebrity, and somebody sees you and they start singing one of that person's songs, or, I mean, there's a lot of white guys with glasses and beards. So if somebody would come up to me and be like, oh, you're just like that, it's basically that same thing, right? They're just kind of, seeing how you look and kind of relating that to this portrayal that may or may not be super accurate, or problematic. And she's just kind of like, again, says I kind of just have to smile and kind of just like kind of sit there with it, and everybody on the bus kind of claps. And then that brings her back to, let me find the story again. That brings her back to the original point she makes, right? Where she says, right here, reminding me of a prime fact of my life. You can leave the island, and we notice island is capitalized because she's referring to Puerto Rico. So Puerto Ricans, a lot of times when they refer to Puerto Rico, they'll call it the island, right? So you can leave the island, master the English language, and travel as far as you can. Because remember, she's in Oxford, she's in London, England at this point. Travel as far as you can. But if you are a Latina, especially one like me, who so obviously belongs to Rita Moreno's gene pool, so meaning more kind of like um, brown skin, black hair, right? All of these kind of predominantly Latina features, right? You know, where is it? There it is. Premier gene pool, the island travels with you, meaning you kind of take that, you still take that with you wherever she goes. So as much as she's trying to break out of that stereotype, she's moved halfway across the world. She's mastered the English language. She's going to Oxford University. She's still none of that stuff matters because she's still just compared to you know um a Puerto Rican actress in a famous movie, right? So how do you think that would make her feel at this point? Does she probably feel good about herself or maybe not? What do you think?
No, because like when I guess she feel like as in though every time somebody see her, that's what they see, her race.
Right. And they're not seeing all of her accomplishments and successes, right?
Yeah, they don't see her for like as who she really is. They just see her as being Latino, even though she is. But that
Right,
might
right, right.
she might not like that.
Yeah, yeah. Have any of you have any of you had a similar experience? It doesn't have to be just anybody in general. A similar experience where like, this person's only seeing me for the way I look and not what I've done, what I've accomplished, or what I'm like trying to do. Has that happened to anybody else? If you feel like sharing, if not, that's totally fine.
Yeah, that happened to me before, but I'm just keep it to myself. But I know it happened to me before though.
That's fine. That's totally fine, Denise. I appreciate you at least letting us know, and that's totally fine if you don't want to share. But yeah, I'm sure it's probably happened to every one of us in here. I'm sure it's happened to a lot of you all, maybe more so than it's happened to um, myself and Miss Kelsey. But like I said, there's a lot of people who just say, "Oh, there's you're another white guy with a beard and glasses. You're a hipster," or I mean, Miss Kelsey used to be, used to coach. So there's a lot of stuff that goes on there. Like, are they seeing her as a coach or are they seeing her as just as a female first, right? So that's so why it might not be as extreme as some of you've experienced or this author experience. I think everybody experiences that kind of thing in some way where you're not seeing me for what I've done. You're just seeing me for my race or my religion or my ethnicity or whatever it might be, but that's not my entire identity. And so that's what she's kind of struggling with here in this story, is that idea of identity, and how do I kind of keep that but also still want to do my own thing. Because Denise made a good point. It's not like she's not Puerto Rican. She is Puerto Rican, but she's also much much more than just that ethnicity, right? Like she said, she's going to Oxford. She's doing graduate classes. She's trying to be a successful writer. So we're kind of out of time here today, but that is a really good place. It's a really good start. So when we come back again on Tuesday, and over the weekend, I'll have the link to the story on Summit, and I'll send it out via email so you can try to read a little bit then too. But on Tuesday, we'll try to finish the story and work through the checkpoint and see how we can analyze the structure of this story and how these anecdotes all kind of are linked together to um, help support that big theme that we started talking about today, which is her identity. Um, all right. Questions about anything? So in terms of work, nothing due right now unless you still haven't finished checkpoint one. Make sure you're caught up on that, which is available to you on Summit, and there's YouTube videos on the YouTube channel of class recordings for you to watch to get caught up there. And I'll also be in the Summit Lab today as well. Okay.
What's the YouTube channel so I can watch the previous classes?
I can. It's a very good question, Denise. Thank you. I will put a link in the chat right now
Okay.
to the channel, and then you can. The videos should all be sorted by date, so you can check that out there. All right. There is the link to the YouTube channel. Thank you for that reminder, Denise. Any questions from anybody else? Everybody good with what we're doing so far? Any other issues? Denim, I'll make sure I assign you to all the Summit stuff because I know you just registered. Anything else before we go? All right, awesome. Well, really good job. Thank you, everybody who shared. And have a great weekend because I won't see you on Friday. And don't forget to sign into mentoring tomorrow. And participate so you can earn some money. All right. So I will see you all tomorrow then, hopefully. All right. Really good job today, y'all. Thank you.